The next step is the 52, and I love the first line of the 52. It really tells you what keeping still is all about. It says, think before you speak. Oh, how nice. I call it Keeping Still Mountain is its original name. I often call it the Buddha Gate. Both the 52 and its polarity, the 58, these are the two adrenal gates that fuel the logical process. Because we know that logic is starved for energy, that it is so difficult for the throat to reach energy sources, that these two gates particularly, and the fact that they are oppositions to each other, have enormous importance in being able to keep us secure. Remember, that's the business of logic. Logic is to keep us secure as a species. Those things that we can understand and that we can have as a shared understanding takes tension away from our lives in terms of our concerns about survival. Logic is something that gives us a sense of stability in this life. The 52 is part of, in the lower trigram, the right angle cross of service. The 52, the 58, the 17, and the 18. The right angle cross of service. And you will notice in this right angle cross of service that all four gates of the cross are logical. They're all part of the understanding process. And that it is the role of logic to be of service to humanity. And the first way of being service to humanity is think before you speak. The 52 is looking for the energy to do detail work. The 52 knows how to be passive. That is, it knows how not to be distracted. It's not about being passive in the sense that it doesn't move. It's about being passive in the sense that it is not distracted so it can be focused. The full focus, of course, comes through when it reaches the other side, and we are dealing with a format energy. All the gates out of the root are specifically depressive. If the 52nd gate cannot be passive for a purpose, it gets depressed. This is a wonderful gate for those people who want to and need to practice something. Because once there is a focus, there is this ability to eliminate distraction and thus open up the way for real focus. The earth is exalted. It says the pause that is so profound that it leads to silence. Listen to what's written above the lines for the hexagram. Temporary. Please note the language. Temporary and self-imposed inaction for the benefit of assessment. Energy is precious to the logic process. It's precious to it. How that energy is used is so important. And again, that's a question of whoever the being is that carries that energy being able to operate out of their nature. The pacification of energy that leads to stillness. But most important of all, understand that the 52nd gate is about the capacity not to be distracted. Mars and detriment, speaking first and living with the consequences afterwards. To waste logical energy may mean that there's no place to put that energy again for a long time. An experiment that goes wrong, that's utilized a lot of resources, will not easily get refinanced. Think before you speak. Be clear in your assessment before you act. Energy that cannot be stilled. This is where the depression comes. You have the energy not to be distracted. You have the energy potential to be focused and concentrated, but you don't have anything to concentrate on. Remember the magic of logic. If you want to be a master, you can only be a master through the repetition process. But you got to have something that you want to repeat. You have to have something that is there for you that you can focus your energy on. And again, when it comes to vocation or avocation, it has to come to you in relationship to your type. If you're a manifester and you want to play the piano, you have to go up to the piano teacher and you have to ask permission. Can I please try to learn the piano with you? And if you're a generator, you have to wait for somebody to ask you. Have you ever tried the piano? Would you like to try? And if you're a projector, somebody has to come up to you and say, your hands, you know, you could really play the piano? Let me invite you to a piano lesson. It is just the way it works. And if you enter in correctly, remember that. It's about going in. It's not about afterwards. Because once you're in, how you go in is how the game is established, how the interaction is going to work. If you go in conditioned, you stay conditioned. You go in as yourself, you stay yourself. Second line. The second line is, in the 52, is about as second line as you can get. I mean, after all, the 52 is about this gift of being able to avoid distraction. That's why it's a good Buddha gate. You know, you can everything just clears away. Everything just clears away. And of course, the second line is all by itself in its isolation. And of course, it's not distracted at all. It's right in its thing, but it gets distracted by others who are always trying to get it to be interested in what they're doing and not distracted by what they used to be doing. Remember, this is collective. Every logical person who doesn't have logical energy, whenever they meet a 52-58, whenever they meet them, they desperately will try to get them to apply that energy. Come work with me. Now, it's not that they know why they're doing that. It's just that the moment that they make contact with the correct logical energy, they have a chance to fulfill their dream of experimentation. Concern. Second line. The pause that is initiated to benefit others. The pressure to restrain energy for the benefit of others. You don't really want me. I'm not going to be able to concentrate on this. You just think you need me, but you really don't. And if you leave me alone and find somebody else, it'll be a lot better for you. By the way, very few 52s, unless they're aware, when they are offered their opportunities, rarely do they do that. You know, you get called out, you get distracted. It's hard to get back to not being distracted. And you can often end up being suckered into being focused and concentrated on something that really isn't for you. It's very depressing. Mars in detriment, a selfish and abrupt pause that may engender others unnecessarily. That is the pressure to selfishly restrain energy at the expense of others. My friend's drowning, don't distract me. Well, it's true. They don't want to be distracted. They're being focused and concentrated. It's just the extreme of that. So this is really the extreme of second line behavior, to the point that it would seem perverse. And what's opposite the 52-2? The 58-2, the line of perversion. You know, this is perverse concentration. Darling, the house is burning. Don't distract me. You know, they're not going to move. They're going to be focused. They're great in a crisis, eh? You know, everybody's racing around. They're just sitting there. Everybody thinks they're being brave. Aren't they a calming influence? Well, you know, the second and fifth line is lines of projection. The way people see second and fifth lines is never reliable. You know, there's a lot of illusion and delusion caught up in the way in which projection operates. Third line. Again, the cross of service. Keep this in mind. That is that it is a service in the second line to say, don't distract me. I mean, after all, you know, if you're a reincarnation fatalist, and you know the child gets hit by the car, whatever the case may be, you know, that's one of those, well, you know, that's karma. I mean, there are people like that. There are philosophies like that. Don't distract me, it's none of my business. I mean, this is one of the things that's so clear about the logical process, is that they're involved in their business. You know, that's why we have this prejudice against the social quality of scientists. You know, scientists are seen as being sort of nerdish. You know, and they have that reputation because they seem so fixed on what is serious business for them. By the way, 52s are serious people. And if they don't have something to be serious about, they're seriously depressed. Controls. External enforcement of inaction. If the 52 doesn't know what it's doing, doesn't live out its own nature, gets involved in putting its attention to something, and doesn't realize what is expected of it at the other end, it gets quite a shock. After all, this is all about the collective process of sharing. It's very much interactive in that sense. And of course, we know that the lower trigram does not have this social gift. The ability by its very nature to understand restraint with the potential in acceptance to use this period to redefine strategies. The energy for acceptance in inaction. Now, these are people who learn about that from outside forces. You know, you have a 52-3 kid who decides that they're going to learn how to play the piano, and they won't practice unless you threaten to beat them. You know, after a few scars and a few years, when they can play more than Mary Had a Little Lamb, they will deeply appreciate it. But the moment that you let go with controlling them, external control, they will not focus and concentrate. Now think about what that means for your children who carry third lines. It means that none of them really focus well or concentrate well. They don't, because things keep on happening. It's third line. They keep on banging into things. They start reading something, something attracts their attention in what they read, and off they go in another direction in their mind. And 2 hours later, they come back and realize that they haven't read anything. They just go adrift. So outside controls are always going to come into the life of all third lines. I mean, after all, that's how they learn in their trial and error. You know, the third line has been living in a cave. It doesn't really know about the world on the outside, comes with its set of recipes, and then bangs into the world only to discover that a lot of them don't work. And has to go either through a restructuring or refining process as the result. So for the 52 threes, they're only going to be able to concentrate. They're only going to be able to focus through the external and not from within themselves. It is enforced on them through their life process. Venus in detriment, a deep dissatisfaction with controls that disturbs tranquility, leads to emotional withdrawal, and affects vision. The pressure of restraint disturbs tranquility. You know, this is the very same child that's told that it has to do its homework and is locked in its room and doesn't. Just gets depressed. Just gets angry. Goes through whatever. And again, of course, that's going to be conditioned by the nature, obviously, of their design. It sounds difficult, the third line here. All third lines, because they are trial and error, they result in a different kind of genetic material. That is, it's tougher material in the sense that it's designed to be able to take the bumps and the bruises. It's like having little bits of armor that are slightly additional. Because all third lines are banging into these things. And of course the 52-3 has to bang into being controlled. I mean, learning what it's like, not just simply to release that energy, but to focus it. To learn what focused energy really is. By the way, when they learn it, they're great, eh? I mean, that's the whole thing about third lines. You find genius in third lines. You find extraordinariness in third lines. Because once they do get it, once they've gone through banging themselves enough, they're deeply experienced. And they get to fulfill their destiny. But they're not transpersonal. When we get to the fourth line here, in this transpersonal, remember that logic as a collective process requires an intense and deeply woven matrix of beings. You know, our evolution as a species has seen us go from the mad scientist to scientific laboratories of enormous size, to scientific factories of enormous size. So the transpersonal of this is about discipline. And it is about instilling discipline in others in order that the energy can be used properly. You know, it's people screaming all the time, give me the new medicine, give me the new medicine, but it really does deserve 2 or 3 years of tests. You know, this is the discipline to be able to resist the misuse of energy. Perfected self-discipline and restraint that deals easily and wisely with impulsive temptations. You know, they're very fixed. They really know how to not be distracted. The energy for restraint, which recognizes the value of stillness and focus. And it instills that focus in others. It helps others to focus and concentrate just by being in their aura. Again, remember something. We see a line and we don't see it in the context of the design. We don't know if this is a defined channel or not, and all the other things that come with looking at somebody's design. It's very important to see that not only is it a matter of recognizing the way to enter in, But it's also about seeing that the way in which this 52 is going to use its energy is going to be deeply connected to how it connects to the other. Whenever you're looking at collective gates, you have to recognize that that's where your ability to discern the valued other is so important. And again, that goes back to you living out your type. You know, how somebody naturally recognizes you, how somebody naturally deals with you, tells you what they're actually experiencing. Are they experiencing themselves through your undefined centers? Or are they experiencing you? And it's one of those things in the collective process, particularly when it comes to logic, to be clear about the forces that you're dealing with. The fourth line here does not really understand people. Yes, it's transpersonal. Its gift is that it knows that somebody else should get this. But it doesn't really know how to share discipline, self-discipline with the other. It just knows that that's what everybody should have. And of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're successful. But they are always influential. Look how restrained she is. Look at her self-discipline. Isn't that extraordinary? Blah, blah, blah. Saturn exalted, perfected self-discipline and restraint, deals wisely with temptations, the energy for restraint which recognizes the value. It's all about the value. Stillness and focus has a value. And stillness and focus is not action. It's about working on it. Think before you speak. Think before you act. Prepare beforehand. Jupiter, though responsive to the need of a principled control based on the understanding of conditions, there is a tendency to its natural expansiveness to doubt and restlessness, restless energy and doubt in the face of restraint. So this is somebody who knows they have to externalize self-discipline, but don't really know for sure that that's the answer. That's very healthy in logic. Doubt is one of the most important aspects of logic. It's a keynote for the 63rd gate. It is the inspiration for the mental logical system. Doubt is essential. Without doubt, there is no reason to experiment. And it is doubt that keeps the experimentation alive. You see, without doubt, you can never be honest. When the doubt is eliminated, then you have a successful formula. And through experimentation, you can have something that is proven to be valid or effective. So when you're sitting down there in the energy system, you know it's a long way to go. So there's always going to be doubt about whether or not that self-discipline, one shared with others, is going to lead to success. The juxtaposition, the 17 and 18 disappear and we get the 21 and the 48. So this is a 52, 58, 21, 48. And this is called the juxtaposition cross of stillness. Not to suggest that this is absolutely, I don't want to go through this whole thing again about scientific validation. But there are people who have this configuration who, they suffer from various kinds of paralysis. There has been a lot of examples of biological stillness in this particular cross. The way it operates normally, normally only in the sense from my experience, and not all of these crosses do I have a lot of experience with. In this cross of stillness, what you have is somebody who is much more concerned about being still than anything else in life. And literally what that means is that those are people that will practice and never perform. They will be focused on something but may never manifest. They look real good in an ashram. You could say they had the Buddha state, Looks like they're in bliss, they just don't know what the hell's going on. Remember the depressiveness that lies in the root. When adrenaline is not allowed to operate properly, its result, the way in which the chemistry operates, is to really disturb us. It comes out in what we call depression. So there are people who sit still, who don't say anything, and who are just deeply depressed that there's no place to put their life energy. It can be very depressing. The other side of that, by the way, is at the 9th gate, where the energy for detail is. If you have the 9th gate and you don't have the 52, and you have something to work on detail-wise, but you can't stay still, that's also depressing. All format energy carries with it depression. And again, the depression isn't there if you're living out your nature. I'll keep on telling you that. The left angle cross is called the left angle cross of demands. So we go from service, stillness, demands. The 5th line, explanation. In times of inaction, the often important ability to explain one's position. Classic for the 5th line. The 5th line is sitting on the farm, tending the stock, and it's a time of crisis and it's a time of need, and everybody says, well, why aren't you involved now? Why don't you come and save us? We need you. And the 52.5 says, I'm thinking, or I'm looking after my sheep, or whatever it may be. They need to explain their position. Remember that the 5th line gets projected on. And they are the format energy, the format adrenal energy for the whole logic process. So they get projected on a lot. We need these people. We're stuck here. We need your help. Often it's, we need your money. 52s are always being asked for money. It's assumed that because they're still, they're sitting on it. Well, it's true. Money's just energy. It's just energy. You sit on your energy and everybody thinks you got something there and that you can. After all, when we see retired people who do nothing, they're sitting on their money. We know that. Nest eggs. The often terse but exceedingly accurate statement, I don't want to help you right now. I don't want to be distracted right now. You can get the flowery type. Oh, I'd love to be able to help you right now, and I really appreciate it that you think that I could be of help to you. But I'm really quite involved in something right now, and that would just distract me. I'm sorry. You got the nice side. You have this exalted side, the exceedingly terse comment. Don't waste your time with me, I'm busy. Don't call me, I won't call you. Right? Which can be very annoying. 52.5s, when they are called upon, they are expected to provide their energy. Logic is looking for that. If you don't lend them the money, they're really going to be angry. He's sitting there doing nothing with that. Yeah. Pluto and detriment. A convolution whose enigmatic nature is normally misunderstood with unpredictable circumstances. This is the true heretic, where too much inaction can lead to loss of focus and not to detail. Being called out. The general in the 5 we know is a force that has to be separate and withdraw and then be called and come in. But this is the gate of being withdrawn and separate. This is one of the most common gates for going to jail. I know so many people who have this gate, who have had problems. You go to jail. They lock you up in a room. Inaction. So one of the things to recognize about that is that the strategy of the fifth line to be attractive by being out of view, that it becomes so comfortable that they don't want to engage at all. And then they're really despised. I mean, they're really despised because they do not give this essential energy to the collective for the collective to be able to fulfill their process. You know, the 48s are putting pins in dolls against them, and I mean, the 16 is trying to figure out techniques to change their life so they can get access to them. You know, everybody in the logic program is trying to figure out how to get these guys off of there so they can get their juice. So they can seem very, very nasty and unfriendly and uncaring and whatever. The convolution, the enigmatic. Inaction can lead to a loss of focus, not to the detail. They themselves get lost in that. You know, they lose their power. The whole thing about a fifth is that the projection will die. If you never come off the farm and fulfill the projection, you know, you can't just live on your reputation. You can't. You have to come back into view. Otherwise, you lose it. Because otherwise, you don't get the renewal on that projection. So what happens is at the moment that they don't come in, at the moment that they really get caught in the 52 grasp, they really lose their power. And then everybody starts to forget that they're even there. Wasn't there once this powerful man that used to live out here with his pigs? I think he still lives out there. Oh, really? I mean, you know, they're forgotten all of a sudden. And of course, what happens to them then is that they lose their power. By the way, you know, no choice. It is their nature to be that way because obviously that power does not belong in the collective. I mean, it's not about you deserve to be able to share that with the collective. You get what you get. I mean, you get what you get. The sixth line of the 52. Peacefulness. Venus exalted a harmonic and balanced attunement that is at ease regardless of the situation. It's one of these magical places. You know, what the sixth line learns as its potential in life. I mean, after all, the sixth line stays still for a long time. And without the right focus and without the energy, without the manifestation, without the experimentation, that they can have a life that is full of depression because of that. But at the same time, they can develop a sense to recognize what is truly for them to be focused on. And again, the secret to that is their design. That through their design, through being themselves, through entering properly into their relationship with everything in life, that then they're going to be able to find the natural place for them to focus and concentrate. That's the moment that they are perfect. Because that's the moment that there can be no distraction. I mean, the 52 is always going to be distracted as long as they are not focused on something that is for them. The lack of pressure in times of stillness. You know, to be able to wait, to be able to sit without distraction and to place your attention in one place. You know, this is their peacefulness. Doesn't mean they're not busy, but they're at peace with themselves. By the way, it isn't to say that all six lines get there. I mean, you know, understand that. That may be the potential of the sixth line, but given the nature of their design and the conditioning they received as a child, they may or may not ever have a chance to fulfill that. That's what it means to come back to yourself and decondition yourself so you can begin to live out the lines the way they're meant to be lived out, through you. Neptune in detriment. Delusion as a substitute for genuine tranquility. I love that. The hell's the difference? I mean, is there really a difference? Given the positive nature of this position, the delusion may be just as effective as the real thing. And that's wonderful about these people. They can be alone and really deluded, but focused in their delusion. Good for them. Good for them. It's where they belong, where the pacification of the energy is extreme. Pressure, real or imagined, does not disturb the stillness. It doesn't matter what's out there. They can stay in that focus of theirs, in the delusion that they are going to solve the greatest mysteries. It's great. Don't distract me. I'm finding out the name of God. It's wonderful. Away they go. Everybody else screams. All 6 lines are not in their time yet. They are not. In the way the global cycles work, since 1961, we've been in a first line theme. Wherever you have first lines in your design, they are in harmony with the times. This is the part in you that fits into the world as it is now. Because the precession of the equinox moves backwards through the wheel, we are now in the 37th hexagram first line, and we are going to move back in 2027 to the 55th hexagram, 6th line. The 6 lines that you carry in your design, they resonate to the future. And they resonate to that future that's coming beyond 2027. By the way, for those of you who love incarnation blah blah, you can go backwards too. The last time that we were in a 6 line theme was the years before 1615. So if you come in on a 6 line cross, chances are you know that place back there. And you can intuit it through wherever your 6th line happens to be. That's why that you have many people, for example, who will have a lot of 6 lines in their design, and they will not feel like they belong in this world and are lost in science fiction books. They're lost in anything that smacks of the future. And 2nd line people, who are yesterday's people, their theme went out in 1961. It'll be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years before that theme comes alive again. And they can be lost in the past. Nostalgic. I used to fit into the world, but I don't fit into the world as it is now. So in looking at any 6th line, understand that not only is it above looking out and trying to assess the value of its own process, what the hexagram is itself, but it is also a mutative force that is resonating to a coming future. And out of that, a sensitivity to the future.